Good day, Ma'am Mary Jane, and to all of our co-tourism students. This time, we are able to tackle the lesson 2 regarding the self, society, and culture. I am Joanna Riza J. Gorion.
I am Angelica B. Perdigon.
And I am Claire May P. Abiharan.
And I am Reina Jean Siton.
At the end of the lesson, we should be able to explain the relationship between of the self, society, and culture, compare and contrast how social institution and culture affected the form of the self, and examine oneself against the different perspective in the lesson and various experiences of your classmates.
In the first phrase, philosophy have been debated over the self and the mind-body perspective. So therefore, social science are being applied. There's the sociology, anthropology, and many more social science that may apply in order to one over the self. Like, is it really a mind and body? I know you were all confused, but my groupmates here will discuss the rest for further more answers.
The paragraph in front of us shows that even the most introvert of us would have to relate and communicate because no man is an island, they said. So it means we really have to socialize with others in order of us to define ourselves.
In this next slide, we have a key concepts, which is we have to define the culture, the norms, and the value. So every persons live in a society which is defined as a group of people sharing the same culture, and typically this interacts in a definite territory. So we have the example there is the Igorot, which is nagsusuot sila ng mga bahag. Yes, the attires, the tools, weapons. And the weapons, architectural designs, religious implements, and non-material culture or the belief system, the values, the norms or expected behaviors, as well as the shared language and symbols. So the norms are the rules on what to do or what not to do in a certain situation. So we have the example is pagmamano, which is the norm, and the value here is paggamagalang or being a respectable human. So we have there an example of culture and tradition of the Philippines. So are you familiar with the first picture? We called it in the Philippines pagbabayanihan or unity in English. So the middle picture here shows the cultural dance, which we called it tinikling, as the K concept said that the cultural or yes, the culture of the Filipino shows the attires. Makikita po natin dyan yung mga damit na mga mananayaw. And lastly, the norms or pagmamano. Nakasanayan na natin mga Pilipino yung pagmamano sa mga nakakatanda. And we owe our next generation to follow that kind of norms. According to Kendall 2006, society is composed of people, and culture is composed of ideas, behaviors, and material possessions. So simply as that, if there is no people, there is no society. And if there is no ideas, behavior, and material possessions, there is no culture. To maintain a smooth functioning society, social institutions are created. So are you familiar with the social institutions? Example of that are schools, church, government, market, and so on and so far. So ma-explain na sa akong mga ka-groupmate unya. And it is a set of ideas, norms, practices, or mechanisms organized and focused on addressing the needs of the community. That is by McIntyre 2002.
Theoretical approaches and frameworks enable us to combine and use concepts in a meaningful way to look and understand a part of reality. In this case, the connection of self and society and culture. The first theoretical approach explained the social cultural, that is necessary because it affects on who we are. Even if you move from one place to another, we adapt a new perspective and we still had a Filipino that practices of the culture we are for. Number 2. Whether we like it or not, we need others to reinforce who we think we are. For example, sa imong kaugalingon nindot kay kagtingog, feeling mo nindot kay kagtingog, pero sa lain pangit di ay to. So we really need to accept the fact that that is the truth. Number 3. Our notion of what is personally important to us is also influenced by the current trends of what is important in our society. For example, what is the trend in social media now? Di ba ang TikTok? People nowadays kay more nag-focus sa TikTok because mao'y trend.
So according to Ruth, Benedict, and Margaret Mead, they were arguing if a personality of a person is independent on the cultural practices. Like for example, I can identify myself as well as my personality by just following our Filipino culture.
Clifford James Gertz from the School of Symbolic also added that every symbol has meaning and that meanings are made to communicate by each person to make sense of their lives.
As mentioned earlier, social institutions are organized to address the needs of society and they too have a profound effect on our concept of self. So, the kinship or the family is one of the example of social institutions, whereas it is a miniature society where first learn to relate to the outside world at yung mga magulang po natin yung unang nag-i-interact o sila yung nagtuturo on how to relate and to learn with the younger people. Furthermore, our family is the one who shows or who teach the first language and how to describe the thing or the feeling. Also, family is the one who teach or we can learn from them to relate the or how to describe the thing or the feelings, and they showed or told you what to do or not what to do. So in that case, kapag nasa labas na tayo or nakikipagsalamuhan na tayo sa ibang tao, alam na natin yung kung ano yung gagawin at hindi dapat gawin.
Economics. The word itself shows us a service that he or she needs in order to adjust a necessity. For example, the picture shown below is a vendor offers us a delicious foods.
So next up, we have the politics or government. So it is made up of 3 branches, no? First is the executive branch, which is the executive branch is headed by the president who function as both the head of state and the head of government. So the president is also the commander-in-chief of armed force of the Philippines. The president is elected by popular vote to a term of 6 years. And the second one is the legislative branch, which is legislative power is vested in the both government and the chamber of Congress, no, and the House of Representatives. Judicial power is vested in the courts with the Supreme Court of the Philippines as the highest judicial body. So judicial, and the third one is the judicial branch, which is judicial branch is the Supreme Court and the lower courts as established by law. Its duty is to settle actual controversies involving rights which are legally demandable and enforceable.
The educational or school is to ensure that the knowledge of our past and our culture gets transmitted from one generation to another. Some may look at this as a mechanistic way of producing workers, but one must also consider that education has also played in bringing new ideas that change what have been passive status in the past. One example is the creation of ilustrados like Jose Rizal and his colleges that brought concepts for reformation as well as revolution against an oppressive Spanish regime in the Philippines.
Okay, so the last social institutions that we have to discuss is the religion or the church. So how do we say, or how can we say that religion or the church is part of the social institution? So as I mentioned earlier, social institutions are organized to address the needs of the society. So it is to help the members of the society to overcome several problems. Aside from the supernatural, religion or the church can also function to teach and reinforce values, norms, and morals in partnership with the family at the school. So we can identify ourselves without the interactions and socializing to the other people or to the society. According to Berger and Lockman 1991, we are introduced and socialized into our groups, teaching us all the status, rules, values, and norms that we need to live in the society, which became a part of our description of ourselves. In return, the way we collectively live, express, and recreate the imbibed culture reinforces and transforms our society and culture.